Russian President Vladimir Putin stepped up his rhetoric against Europe and the United States, warning in his annual State of the Nation address that the West faced the prospect of nuclear conflict if it intervenes more directly in the war in Ukraine. An apparent reference to French President Emmanuel Macron's comment this week that the possibility of sending Western troops cannot be ruled out.
Today, every inhabitant of this planet must contemplate the day when this planet may no longer be habitable. Every man, woman, and child lives under a nuclear sword of Damocles, hanging by the slenderest of threads, capable of being cut at any moment by accident or miscalculation or by madness. The weapons of war must be abolished before they abolish us.
Okay, so the rhetoric on the war in Ukraine is getting more intense and the propaganda is intensifying. The pressure and the heat is on the House Republicans, on Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, to bring to the floor that bill to send $60 billion to Ukraine. And what they mean by sending it to Ukraine is by giving billions and billions of dollars to the military industrial complex, who in turn give campaign donations to the same politicians who signed off this money. So they want to enrich themselves and enrich their friends in the weapons industry, while also pushing propaganda and antagonizing Russia, because they don't believe that a nuclear holocaust is real. They think it's a myth. So you got the Greek prime minister flying around over there, clearly engaged in some type of war-related trip in Ukraine with Zelensky. Imagine being a belligerent in a war and complaining about almost getting shot down. Oh man, they almost hit me. And then you got people on the internet threatening, oh, we're going to activate Article 5. How dare you shoot a missile in a war zone against your enemy who's waging war against you? That's what they're saying about Putin. This thing is intensifying. We got the Greek prime minister and Zelensky almost being shot down, allegedly. No video footage or anything, but almost being shot down by the Russians. We got British troops. The Germans spilled the beans, let the cat out of the bag. And here's the thing. We got these British troops in Ukraine, and people are saying, how dare you, Germany? Y'all are trash. Y'all shouldn't say that. Look, the Russians already know. Clearly, DC already knows. Anybody with two brain cells to rub together already know there are NATO troops on the ground. The only people this is news to are these people who sat there actually believing that NATO didn't have troops on the ground in operation. So you got British troops on the ground, and there were rumors. I didn't mention it in the Adika video that I did a couple of weeks ago, but there was talk that during the retreat, when they were literally running for their lives after the Russians pushed into the town, there were some of the troops in retreat with American flags on their uniform. But we don't have enough evidence to verify that yet. That's why I didn't mention it last time. Germany, in addition to spilling the beans on the UK in their operating missile systems and other machinery, Germany is threatening to use their missiles to blow up the bridge to Crimea, Russian territory. So these guys are pretty bold. These people are either madmen, lunatics, or they believe that Russia is completely trash and the nuclear holocaust is a myth, because they are really comfortable. Putin makes his threats. Putin said, if you guys try to jump me 31-on-1 or whatever the number is now, if you guys want to jump me and think y'all all big and bad, how about I nuke y'all? And people are saying, how dare you threaten to do that? 30-some countries trying to jump one country. I guess two if you count Belarus. And then they get mad when the one country they're jumping wants to use their most powerful weapons. These guys are insane. But I think the whole point of these stories are for this money, because they're trying to say the Russians are getting stronger, they're gaining more territory. Zelensky almost got killed. Then we got images of M1 Abrams. I thought it was the most unstoppable tank ever. But we have images of multiple tanks, these unstoppable U.S. tanks burning. They talking about all the Russians have space nukes. They're going to launch a nuke into space and blow up satellites. So they're saying the Russians are doing all of this. The Russians and the Chinese, they're causing cyber attacks. Is this all for the money? Is this all to put pressure on Mike Johnson? Because I think all of this noise, I think all of this propaganda coming out of the West has a lot to do with this money. So we're going to look at this CNN report. We're going to react to this report here about the Western point of view, because we're in the fog of war and there's propaganda on both sides. And I never take the words of the U.S. government as the gospel truth, and their mouthpieces like CNN, ABC News. They just report what the government wants them to report, what the Pentagon pushes down to them. So I don't take their words as gospel truth. So this is a Western perspective about what's happened. Let's take a listen.
This is CNN Breaking News.
And we are following some more breaking news out of Ukraine. President Zelensky says a Russian missile hit near where he...
Hold on. This guy. Is this Jim Acosta? This is definitely propaganda, man. With this guy, fake news, this is... If you looked up fake news in a dictionary, you Google fake news and hit images, this guy's face is going to pop up. He's such a lying sack of shit, man. But let's continue.
He and the Greek prime minister were meeting in Odessa on the Black Sea. Zelensky says people were killed and injured in that attack. And CNN's Fred Plykin joins me now. Fred, what more can you tell us?
Hi there, Jim. Well, it certainly looks like it might have been a close call there for the Ukrainian president and actually also the Greek prime minister. It's not clear whether or not the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, was actually the target of what apparently took place there, which seems to have been a missile strike by the Russians near the port or inside the port of Odessa. It was quite interesting to hear the Ukrainian president say that they not only heard an explosion, but he says that they also saw the missile as it was coming down, which of course seems to indicate that both him and the prime.
Oh well, man. How many dead Ukrainians? We got 400,000 or 500,000 dead Ukrainian men in this whole conflict. How many of them saw missiles coming down? Because Washington D.C. and London won't let this war end, and Zelensky is sending these Ukrainian men to their death. This thing could have ended almost 2 years ago. They had a peace deal. They came to terms originally in Belarus. They went down there to Turkey to finish the negotiations. This is like April-ish, maybe May-ish 2022. Not too long after the invasion. They had a deal. The powers that be in D.C., they sent Boris Johnson to nix the deal and hype the Ukrainians up. Don't worry, the Russians are sorry. We're going to have your back. You're going to have 30 countries. We're going to be with you. We're going to supply you and give you money. And you're going to become filthy rich. In fact, you're going to be so rich that your wife is going to be able to spend $40,000 on a shopping trip in Paris. So they told Zelensky all this, and he signed a draft. He banned all men from 16 to 60 years old from leaving the country. Banned them from leaving the country, trapped them in the country, and made them go out and fight a rich man's war. A war where you already had a peace deal. Hundreds of thousands of men dead because they didn't need to. And now, oh, poor Zelensky, he saw the missile. How many of your own men saw missiles before they were blown into pink mist?
Prime Minister of Greece were quite close to that explosion that took place. I want to listen in to what Volodymyr Zelensky had to say later at a press conference. Let's listen in.
Ми бачили сьогодні цей відповідний удар.
We saw this strike today.
Ви бачите, з ким
You can see who we are dealing with. They don't care where they strike. I know.
Wait. Didn't you strike inside Moscow civilian residential areas? Didn't you strike over there with NATO weapons? Didn't you strike the Kremlin? Allegedly, Putin was shitting on himself and scared to death because you sent a drone to the Kremlin. But now, oh, they don't care. Didn't you strike Russian civilians in Moscow?
That there are victims today. I don't know all the details yet, but I know that there are dead and wounded. We need to defend ourselves first and foremost. The best way to do that is with an air defense system.
Here we go.
And Jim, the Ukrainian president...
I thought these fancy, super expensive Patriot missiles were enough. I thought even the Kinzhal, the hypersonic missiles, couldn't even break through. And I thought y'all were totally secure. I guess you need more money because those Patriots have been hit and some of them have been destroyed. So send us more money.
They're saying that they were dead and wounded. The Ukrainian authorities, the Ukrainian Navy now coming out and saying that there were 5 people who were killed and further people who were wounded in that strike. And some new information that we literally just got a couple of minutes ago actually coming from the Russians. They claim that near that port facility that they struck what they said was a warehouse containing unmanned sea drones from the Ukrainians. Again, impossible to confirm whether or not that was really the case, but definitely appears as though it could have been a close call there for the Ukrainian president, Jim.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, these 5 men who are dead, it was a close call for them. I mean, very close, so close that they're already gone. So Poor Zelensky, I guess. Who would spend all of that money that he's stolen? He skimmed off the top. U.S. printed money. Who would spend all that money if he's shot down by the Russians?
Absolutely. I mean, that would have been extraordinary had things turned out differently here.
Would it?
The president is okay. Fred Pleitgen, thank you very much. Joining me now to discuss, CNN national security analyst and former deputy director of national intelligence.
All right, so let's get some government propagandists who are going to just talk about how terrible Russia is, and they're not going to talk about how the war should have ended. They're just going to get some analysis. Can we just end this thing, though? Can we save lives?
President, but the Greek prime minister. I mean, can you imagine if something like that had occurred? Just extraordinary.
Yeah, it is absolutely extraordinary, and it's interesting what this might mean in terms of really galvanizing even more the European support for this war effort. I mean, obviously the Russians knew he was.
Okay, so the Greek prime minister being in a war zone, being a belligerent to this war, him almost getting hit, is going to galvanize, is going to make the Europeans want to fight even more. I don't know about that, because we already see some of these EU countries pulling back. And if an actual full-blown hot war started between NATO and Russia, a lot of these European countries are going to come to peace terms pretty quickly, because they're going to be the first ones to start getting wiped out. The Baltic states, they're not going to want much to do with it. So they can sit on the sidelines and cower as Ukraine gets wiped out. But in an actual war, I don't think they're going to want to do all of this. But anyways, let's skip ahead a little bit. Long video.
That the Russians are tracking Zelensky's movements. This, according to some reports at least, as Beth indicated, was about 150 meters or so away from Zelensky's convoy. That's pretty darn close. If they were also looking at going after the sea drones, as Beth mentioned, that of course is a military target, and is clearly within some of the parameters that the Russians have set.
Yeah, so that's another thing. Military targets, they keep complaining about, oh, Russia is hitting this. Why are they hitting Odessa? Why are they hitting military targets in a military zone? Like they blew up this train station, a train station that the Ukrainians were using to transport troops and weapons. And they said, oh, how dare you blow up this train station? This is terrible. And the Ukrainians have a serious advantage, right? Because a lot of their logistics and training and other war-related things are done inside of NATO countries. For example, these tanks, some of the tanks that need repair, the Bradleys, whatever, they're repaired in Poland and other countries. They do training and weapons prep in NATO countries. See, in a normal war, those would all be military targets. So if you have a tank repair facility, if you have a large hub where you're storing your Patriot systems, a bunch of missiles, your planes, whatever, those would all be military targets. If you have a place where you're training new troops, that would be a viable military target. But Ukraine is not doing that inside of its own country. Most of it is taking place inside of NATO countries. So Russia is not going to attack inside of these countries, because we don't know what the hell will happen if Russia actually did that. So Ukraine has a serious advantage, because you got big and bad, allegedly big and bad NATO doing all this logistics, repair, and training for you. But again, let's skip ahead a little bit more to what this is really about.
But at the same time saying that aid to Ukraine is essential, and that that's what her supporters want to see happen. Obviously, Donald Trump feels differently about a lot of this. He has other plans for Ukraine and Russia. How big of an issue is this issue now of Congress passing aid for Ukraine with Donald Trump all but guaranteed to be the Republican nominee come November?
Yeah, I think that this is, it is getting to the point where we are on the verge here of Ukraine really potentially having the tables turned completely on them. And
whose fault is that?
It is just unconscionable to me that the U.S. Congress is not doing what they're supposed to do. I mean,
how dare Congress not warmonger? How dare Congress not print more money, put the U.S. further in debt by sending money to the military industrial complex? I told you who these clowns are. They're a bunch of government-sponsored activists, war activists, who want to push more and more war. They love all these Middle Eastern wars that the U.S. has been waging for decades, and now they don't give a damn about a possible World War III nuclear exchange. They don't care about that. Print more money, send more money to us. We need to get paid. We need more war. Russia's so bad. Putin is evil. Putin is the reincarnation of Hitler. Let's just keep this going. How dare Mike Johnson not bring this to the floor so we can send more money over there to Ukraine, which is the military-industrial complex.
Put it on the floor and debate it and vote on it, right? Isn't that what democracy is all about? Just vote on it. And let's see where the votes come down. But I mean, we're at the point now where Ukraine cannot defend itself. And they're almost out of air defense missiles in many cases.
I thought Russia ran out of missiles. And why didn't y'all let Ukraine surrender and come to that peace deal 2 years ago?
Why they're losing territory. So
that's why they're losing territory, because y'all didn't let them surrender.
People that it's not $60 billion for Ukraine, that package. Only $14 billion of it is actually for Ukrainian arms. Another $20 billion is just going straight to U.S. manufacturers, along with that $14 billion.
She let the cat out the bag. I can't believe she said that out loud.
That $20 billion is just going to go back into the U.S. stockpile. So, you know, these votes also aren't just about Ukraine. It's also about America and about America's safety and about American jobs. And I think that that is really what...
Wait. So, America jobs. I've been hearing this line over the last few months. So, Lockheed, Boeing, all these big military contractors, you give them money, right? You send billions of dollars to them so they can produce missiles, planes, whatever. And they have to hire people in America to build this stuff, right? So if we let Ukraine get blown into ruins, hey, we can get some American jobs. Somebody might make $30, $40 an hour if we let Ukraine get decimated. Ridiculous, completely ridiculous. And then the other line, this is about America. Say this is a line they've been using for decades. If we don't wage war overseas, America's going to be destroyed. A lie, and I'm glad people are getting wise to this BS.
What Republicans should focus on, as well as doing the right thing for Ukraine and for the U.S. reputation in the world, which Haley really doubled down on today.
Yeah. We have to go. I apologize, Colonel.
Anyways, that's enough of that anyways, because these are warmongers. These little analysts, these experts who are supposed to be talking about the situation, they're just warmongering their government props because the goal is to scare people. They're trying to say, hey, Zelensky almost got killed. The Russians got space nukes. Putin is getting stronger. Even America is going to be destroyed. If we don't do this, first they're going to take over Europe, and then the Russians are going to destroy America. Therefore, let us send $60 billion to the military-industrial complex. Let's pay the pensions while senior citizens are going homeless. Senior citizens are barely getting enough money to eat to pay their rent because rent has skyrocketed in the United States. We have our own seniors who can barely survive, but you are literally paying the pensions of some foreign nationals in Ukraine? What the hell is going on? These people don't give a damn about the American people. They just want to enrich themselves and wage war forever, because that's the way that these American politicians have been living for decades. But let me know what you guys think about this whole thing. Was this whole thing real? Was it all a farce? We don't have any video evidence. It's just Zelensky spouting off at the mouth. Did somebody direct them and say this? They're making up stories because it's all about getting more money. Because if they get this money, they're going to burn it up. And then a couple months later, hey, we need more money. So do you guys think they're just running game? This is all propaganda to get some money? Or do you think, oh, another $60 billion, Russia's going to lose? Leave me your thoughts about this in the comments below. Thanks for watching.